if there is a player you collect that didn't make his country's national team, don't let that deter you from collecting that player. Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of Nonsense on Ice, where we talk hockey and we talk the hobby. Nonsense on Ice, of course, as always, presented by our friends at Upper Deck. And we've got a lot to get to here today on Nonsense on Ice. Some big news coming in from Upper Deck, the NHL rookie debut jersey cards. We're going to talk about those in detail here in just a few moments. So a lot to get to as far as those are concerned. That big announcement coming in the hobby this week, over the last week, actually over the last few days. We're going to be talking about the World Juniors. Those results are in, of course. Who's hot in the NHL right now? The hobby 3 stars, as always. At the time of our recording, it's been about 1 month since that blockbuster Quinn Hughes trade. We'll talk about how that has worked out for both sides 1 month in. I know after a month it can be tough to maybe get a full gauge of how that's going to go, especially for Vancouver, because they acquired some really young players that are still on the upswing. And of course, Quinn Hughes, he's signed with Minnesota for this year and next year. How's it going to look beyond that? We won't spend too much time on that. We'll just get into how's it going for the last month. How's it gone in the hobby for those guys, the players that were involved in the deal? So we'll get to all that coming up in just a few moments. We are also going to have our value vintage pick. And I had to preface the value vintage pick. It's probably been maybe a month ago at this point in time. But I had to tell everybody, don't give me too much flack if the value vintage pick is not necessarily a card from the 50s or 60s. Don't give me too much flack for that, because occasionally we will use the term vintage a little bit loosely, but there is a player from yesteryear who has been in the news a little bit, who had an outstanding career, whose cards I do want to highlight because I think they are an incredible value right now and would be fun for anybody to own in their collection. So we'll get to that coming up later on when we get to the value vintage pick. And we like to always rip something on the program if we have the opportunity. And I guess I should elaborate on where I am. Different set of surroundings here. And that's something that if you've been with us on Nonsense on Ice from the outset, you probably noticed that at times I have a different backdrop. This is a hotel backdrop in a hotel once again. Where are we today? Well, at the time of the recording today, we are in Ottawa. So recording from a hotel in Ottawa today. At the time of our recording on a Sunday, as we often do, on a road trip with the Florida Panthers, of course. And I should always throw this out there because I know that, and I hope that with each passing week, we're getting some folks who are checking out the show for the first time. I am a professional hockey broadcaster. I've been doing Panthers radio, Florida Panthers radio, play-by-play for the last 11 seasons. My 18th year in pro hockey. Seen a lot of games in my time, but on a road trip with the Panthers right now, and it's kind of a tour through the Atlantic Division. But in Ottawa, because last night the Panthers played the Senators. Next stop is going to be Buffalo. And get used to this a little bit. In the coming weeks, we're going to have multiple different hotel backdrops coming your way. We're going to have some hotel recordings of the podcast coming up over the next couple of weeks. So just to put that on your radar. But in mentioning that we're in Ottawa, we've been in Canada this week. We were in Montreal. We were in Toronto going back to earlier in the week. Because we've been north of the border, I've had an opportunity to find, I didn't know that we'd still be able to find these, some of the 25-26 Upper Deck Tim Hortons cards. Now, folks, our listeners in Canada, nothing new to you. You've come to know and love the Tim Hortons cards from Upper Deck for a number of years now. But our listeners in the States, maybe those Tim Hortons cards are things you've heard of, things you've seen. Maybe you have traveled to Canada and bought some before, but I know there's some folks out there who are probably just intrigued by the fact that you can go to a coffee and bake shop and pick up a few packs of hockey cards along the way. They're 3-card packs, inserts in each pack. We will get to those coming up in just a little bit, have a little fun, rip some of these. And I didn't know that I'd still be able to find them, but I was able to find some packs in Toronto and in Montreal. There were a couple of downtown Tim Hortons locations that had a few packs left. So I was able to find a few, and I wanted to share some of them with you here on the show here today. And I picked up some extras, so I might give some of those away in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out on the social channels for that, at Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform and on Instagram. Some other housekeeping notes. Loving the feedback that we're getting week to week as far as Nonsense on Ice presented by Upper Deck is concerned. But if you have anything you'd like to bring to the table, as I always say, questions, concerns, inquiries, statements, you want to throw a sentence fragment at us, we'll get to that. Whatever you want to send our way, we will entertain the suggestion, of course. But it doesn't have to just be a mailbag question. If there's something you'd say, hey, Doug, spend some time on this. This is a segment idea. For example, I've got a couple in the works in the coming weeks. I know we're going to get to an Olympic preview, a full Olympic preview at some point, but I'm also going to take a look back at a couple of different drafts, for example. If there's a segment idea you have, feel free to throw it our way. We're always open to entertaining anything like that. So at Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform, at Doug Plagens on Instagram, lots of different places to follow along with the show, and make sure you give it a like, subscribe, comment, whatever it is. And if you disagree, as I always say, if you disagree with something I say, feel free to let me know. Feel free to ask me a question. Feel free to send me your thoughts if you disagree. I'm always open to a discussion as far as that's concerned. So again, just some housekeeping notes there. We're loving the feedback. We're loving hearing from all of you. And I know one of my favorite parts of the week is when I get to sit down and talk about our great sport as it relates to our great hobby right here on Nonsense on Ice, presented by Upper Deck. But as I mentioned, the big news that came down this week, it was on Tuesday. I was in Montreal. I believe Tuesday was the day this came down. I was sitting there at lunch. Have you ever been to Montreal? I was at Dunn's having a smoked meat sandwich when this news came down, and I was reading it and I was digesting it and I was just trying to make sense of it all. And I was texting some people and I was incredibly excited. And I think that's where we start here. When you have news come down where it felt like everybody just absolutely loved this, and for good reason. Upper Deck announces the NHL rookie debut jersey cards. Now, those are going to be included, per the press release, in 25-26 Upper Deck Extended Series, which will be a summer release. My first reaction there was, my goodness, I am going to be ripping some extended in all the forms. I'll be ripping some Extended Series, and I can't wait for that. And it comes 30 years after the original Upper Deck game jersey cards, which were the first of their kind. You remember those? They had them in all four sports back in the 90s, 96, 97. You had them come out in hockey, football, baseball, basketball. Beautiful cards, and these designs are going to kind of be a nod. They're going to pay homage to those early designs of the game jersey cards from the 90s. Now, the release says Upper Deck has collected game-worn jerseys from the debuts of players such as some of the names that were on the list. Matthew Schaefer. Can you imagine what the chase is going to be like for those Schaefer debut jersey cards? Michael Misa, Beckett Sennecke of the Anaheim Ducks, Brady Martin, Isaac Howard, Easton Cowan, and more. So this is going to be a big chase in the product. And what makes it really special here, I guess what makes it special, that is a broad statement because there are a lot of reasons this is special. The cards are going to have a piece of the jersey from their NHL debut, and it'll feature a photo-matched image. Per the press release, Upper Deck will offer a certificate of authenticity that can match the exact date of the debut game. And there are 3 different variations to collect, which include the debut game jersey autograph numbered to the jersey number. Now, the first thing I thought of there was, the guys with the high jersey numbers. That's going to make the chase, enhance the chase a little bit because there'll be a few more out there in circulation. There'll be a game jersey autograph black 1-of-1 containing a unique patch or the fight strap. And you'll have the cards that are, I guess, base ones, if you will, that just have a swatch of the jersey on it. Like I mentioned, it pays homage to those 90s releases, and I can't wait to rip some Extended Series. But I want to get to this. The first thing I thought of when it comes to these NHL debut jerseys, you think about it, and this is kind of topical too, and I thought about it a lot in terms of what I do. And like I said, I've called over 1,300 professional hockey games between the ECHL, the American League, and now the National Hockey League levels. I've been broadcasting games in the National Hockey League. This is now my 11th season with the Panthers doing radio. And I've had a chance to see a lot of big games, big time performances by big time players, but also had a chance to see a lot of NHL debuts and a lot of first NHL goals. People always ask, what are some of your biggest memories broadcasting? And I tend to throw out, of course, you have, when my first couple of seasons here with the Panthers, Jaromir Jagr was still on the team and Roberto Luongo was playing. And it felt like every single night between those two guys, there was a different milestone that we were keeping an eye on, or a different record that we were keeping an eye on. When Jaromir Jagr moved into second all time in points and the game stopped to acknowledge the moment and how special that was again, something that I'll absolutely never forget. You have big games like Game 7 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Final. Believe me, obviously, I'm the radio broadcaster for the Panthers, and I work for the Florida Panthers, and I couldn't wait to see, at the time, hopefully what it would be like if the Panthers were able to win that Stanley Cup in their home building, and to be able to share that with the fan base and everything that went along with it. And Panthers did win that Game 7, but it wasn't lost on me that entire day leading up that that was only going to be the 18th Game 7 in the history of the Stanley Cup Final. So you had, me, the kid, going back to when I was a kid, hockey history nerd. I couldn't help but sit there and just appreciate that we were getting to be in any way involved in a moment like that, in a game like that. And then, of course, you had the Panthers winning their second straight Stanley Cup last spring, going back to 2023, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final. It was a 4 overtime game, almost went to a 5th overtime. Matthew Tkachuk scored with about 12 seconds left in the 4th overtime. The game was in Raleigh. I'll never forget that one, being able to call what is the 6th longest game in the history of the league. Again, these are things that I'll remember, but I'm tying it all back to the fact that every time I'm asked that question, I always say, but NHL debuts and first NHL goals are moments that I guess to say I live for them, it's true. I can't wait for those moments. And just yesterday, at the time of this, the Panthers had a young guy make his NHL debut. Yesterday here in Ottawa, at the time of our recording, Sandis Vilmanis, a 21-year-old, called up from the American Hockey League. You might get to be more familiar with him as time goes on. He was also named to Team Latvia for the upcoming Olympics. So it's been a big few weeks for him. He'll be 22 in a couple of weeks, but he's played the American Hockey League now for a couple of seasons, got the call, made his NHL debut yesterday, and had a chance to talk to Paul Maurice prior to the game, as I always do. And I asked him what the message would be for a player like this. What was the message going to be for Sandis making his NHL debut in that game? And Paul said, kind of everybody gets the same speech. And he said, you can win 10 Hart trophies, you can win 10 Stanley Cups, you can go to the Hall of Fame, but you only get one first game. And that's the truth for everybody. It doesn't matter if it is a first overall draft pick. It doesn't matter if it's a 26-year-old undrafted free agent who took the long and winding road to the NHL, who's making his NHL debut. You only get one National Hockey League debut. It doesn't matter what comes after that. Some guys are going to have extremely decorated careers, and like I just mentioned, win championships, win awards, maybe be Hall of Famers. And imagine what those rookie debut game jersey cards are going to be like years down the road if you do have guys who continue to progress like it feels like they will. A Matthew Schaefer, for example, a piece of his debut jersey on a card. What's the potential of that card? From a collectability standpoint, from an investment standpoint, whether you're an Islanders fan or not, the potential of that card is through the roof to have a piece of the jersey that he wore in his first game, because as I just said, you only get one National Hockey League debut. There's only one of those games, and it doesn't matter how decorated or how under the radar a player is coming into that NHL debut. You only get one of those. And I guess where I'm tying it all back to, this has always been really special to me, because I know that in what I do for a living, when a big moment like that happens, a first goal, a first game, I want to be ready to do it justice, because those moments are that's somebody's lifelong dream is to get to that point, to get to the National Hockey League. And it's not only, this is something, again, I have the luxury of being able to talk to Paul Maurice, who is just unbelievable with us each day, and being able to get his thoughts. Again, you learn something every day talking to him about the game. But these NHL debuts aren't just for the player. They're for everybody who's been there as a support system for that player all the way through. And it's a symbol of the hard work that the players put in. And now you have a chance to kind of commemorate all this on a card. And Upper Deck has given us the potential to be able to own some of these cards. Again, I know this is going to be an unbelievable chase. I can't wait to rip some extended series as we get into the summer. And this is going to be another core rookie card to chase. And I think what's special too is it's not just a one of one, for example. There are going to be varieties of these cards, and there are going to be a lot of different cards in circulation. They're still going to be tough to pull. They're going to be a chase, and it's going to be a fun chase, but there are going to be a good number of them out there in circulation. And just because the one of one gets pulled, for example, and in our climate today, we know that when the one of one gets pulled, it's going to make the rounds on social media. It's going to be hobby news. We're probably going to talk about it on this show when some of those one of ones get pulled with the debut game jerseys on them. But just because the one of one gets pulled doesn't mean the chase is over if there's a certain player you're targeting. If Beckett Sennecke's one of one jersey auto gets pulled, there are still a lot of other Beckett Sennecke debut jersey cards out there for you to go for. So again, the one-on-one goes doesn't mean the chase is over. So there are a lot of options for us as collectors going into this. Again, this is going to be a really special release, and I can't wait to see where it all goes. Can't wait to see what the future looks like. Can't wait to see what the future looks like for some of these individual cards that are going to get pulled. But just one of the big bits of news from Upper Deck this week, the announcement of the NHL rookie debut game jersey cards from Upper Deck. So again, lots more information. Check out Upper Deck's website. You can read the press releases. This was something, too, that resonated with a lot of outlets. Sports Business Journal, different outlets, Bleacher Report, a lot of different outlets had blurbs about this. So this is something that caught the attention of a lot of different people in and around, and even in some cases outside of the hobby. This was industry news. This was news within the sport. And again, I'm sure something that all of us are going to be excited to see how it continues, not just with this year's release, but into the future, and as far as the future of these specific cards are concerned. So said we'd spend a lot of time on that out of the gate, but again, this was something that, like I said, as a collector, it hit home with me, but it hit home with me as it ties back to my profession and just my general love of the sport. This is something that, again, really special from Upper Deck. Really awesome that they were able to make this happen. And again, just looking forward to it. Say I'm looking forward to it. That is an understatement. If you have any thoughts on this, if there is a player you're going to be chasing in that, how much extended series are you going to be ripping? Let me know. Tweet at Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform. You can send along a message on Instagram as well. You can post comments on YouTube, for example. Lots of different places you can interact with us, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. Of course, the show's available wherever you get your podcasts, so you can find it. And tell a friend. They can find it wherever they get their podcasts as well. So big announcement there, taking it back to the National Hockey League. Who's hot, folks? At the time of this recording, nobody hotter than the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay has won 9 straight at the time of our recording here. Again, recording on a Sunday, as we so often do. They had a convincing win over the Philadelphia Flyers at the time we're doing this last night. We've mentioned Nikita Kucherov in our Hobby 3 Stars recently, so we aren't going to dig too much into that. The sales data on Nikita Kucherov cards, again, I think there's some great buys out there. And I should mention, too, if we do throw any sales data your way, it comes from our friends at Card Ladder. But Nikita Kucherov, video game numbers here right now. This is not a typo at the time we're doing this. 33 points and plus 16 since December 1st. That's a 16-game span for him. So he's just rolling right now. Nikita Kucherov's on fire. He's one of those guys. McDavid's been rolling. Celebrini's been rolling. Draisaitl, some players putting up some big point totals lately. But Nikita Kucherov as he has been for years, a driving force for Tampa Bay on their hot streak right now. But another name that probably, to say is flying under the radar hobby-wise, might be an understatement, because I think he's flying under the radar just in terms of the general scope of the National Hockey League. Folks, Darren Raddysh, defenseman. This is not an incredibly young guy. This is a guy who has been around a bit, worked his way up. But Darren Raddysh has seen an elevated role with Victor Hedman out, which Victor Hedman probably out until about Olympic time. So what Tampa Bay's been doing, pretty impressive considering they're missing their perennial Norris Trophy candidate defenseman who plays about 25 minutes a night for John Cooper. So no Victor Hedman, and Ryan McDonough's been kind of in and out. So pretty impressive what Tampa Bay's been doing. But Darren Raddysh is a guy who's seen his responsibilities increase with Hedman, for example, being out. 21 points and plus 15 in his last 15 games. So Darren Raddysh has been producing a lot of points. He's getting a lot of power play time. If you've ever watched a Lightning game and paid attention to Darren Raddysh, or been out there in person to see the Tampa Bay Lightning, whether it's in Tampa or when they're a visiting team somewhere, watch Darren Raddysh shoot the puck. He can uncork it. So this is a guy who's got some really good offensive upside, and something to keep an eye on. His 2021 Upper Deck Young Guns rookie card, number 483 that year, you could probably find it in dollar boxes. It's maybe a $2-3 card, but Darren Raddysh putting up some big numbers. He's seen his role elevate in the absence of Victor Hedman. Tampa Bay's a contender again, and Darren Raddysh, a guy, deserves a little bit of hobby attention, I think, based on what he's been doing lately in terms of production and shouldering a heavy load. And again, he's one of those guys that catches your attention. Sometimes it'll jump off the TV screen at you when you see a guy shoot the puck like he can. He can rip it. So pay attention to that, folks. And again, keep an eye on the Tampa Bay Lightning, because red hot team right now, hottest team in not only the Atlantic, not only in the East, but in the entire National Hockey League at the time of our recording. Big news with a couple of individuals this week. Connor Bedard back on the ice. Played a couple of games at the time we're doing this for Chicago. Last night, couple of assists in his second game back in that Blackhawks win over Nashville. So back in action, looks good. We'll revisit that in a few moments, because I plan to do a Bedard check-in on this week's edition. And we'll get to that coming up here shortly. Did a little bit of a deeper dive into some of his stuff. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Same goes for Macklin Celebrini. We're always, it seems like, going to be doing a Celebrini check-in. We've done it for probably about a month straight at this point in time. But he's accounted for I should say not accounted for, but been involved in about half of San Jose's goals this season. And he's up to 70 points on the year, more than double the point total of his closest teammate behind him in the Sharks scoring race. And right now, at the time we're doing this, the Sharks are into a playoff spot. Now, if they make the playoffs, I think even the biggest Sharks fans would say that might happen. That might be happening a bit ahead of schedule, maybe a year ahead of schedule. That being said, if the Sharks make the playoffs, I don't think I'm breaking any ground here. I don't think this is an outlandish statement at all. But if the Sharks make the playoffs, Macklin Celebrini has to get some Hart Trophy consideration. You look at some of the other names. Obviously, Nathan MacKinnon, the season he's having, the season Colorado is having, deserves plenty of attention as far as the Hart Trophy race is concerned. Connor McDavid's going to be in that mix again. I just mentioned Nikita Kucherov. These are all names that are in the Hart Trophy race, it feels like, every year. But Macklin Celebrini, what he's doing as a 19-year-old, again, it's special. And I saw a stat yesterday from the folks, good follow on the Twitter X platform, Sportsnet Stats, Sportsnet up here in Canada, a lot of good nuggets that they throw out stat-wise. But there was a stat, teenagers with 26 points in a 13-game span. And there were three names on that list. And it was Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, Macklin Celebrini. Not the first time that this season we've thrown some achievement at you, some stat at you, where it's a short list of players who've done it. And it's those kind of names. We're getting names, it feels like, with a lot of what Macklin Celebrini's doing. Names like, oh, well, nobody's done this except for Gretzky, Crosby, Lemieux, and it usually doesn't go much further than that. So another example of, I guess, in a short burst, just how impressive what Macklin Celebrini is doing is. But this is a special player, 19 years old, to be putting up the points that he is, but also to be doing it on a team that is very much in transition, again, at his age. And you watch him play, folks, and I know this isn't necessarily what sells cards, but you watch him play and you see the hockey sense and the hockey IQ and the plays that are made away from the puck and the commitment to playing all ends of the ice. And you throw in even the intangibles. You can tell that he's got great leadership qualities for a guy his age. This is a special player. His prices are through the roof right now, but I think there are still deals on Macklin Celebrini's stuff. There are some things out there. We'll talk about that coming up in a few moments. Young teams, though, sometimes they do have their ups and downs. The Sharks have had some ups and downs this year. Anaheim, they're going backwards a little bit. This is a really entertaining team, but it also just shows you can burst out of the gate. You can have a great record early, but when all of a sudden you find yourself, a couple of months into the season in a playoff spot, and there starts to be a little bit of pressure to maintain that playoff spot, especially in a season like this where the standings are as tightly packed as they are and the league is as competitive as it is. It can be tough, and it can be tough to maintain that consistency. This is an incredibly entertaining team, an incredibly entertaining watch. If you're just kicking back looking for a team to tune into, the Anaheim Ducks are a great option for you. I love a lot of their core pieces. Still think this team should find itself in the playoff picture when we get to the spring. And if that happens, that might be a year or so ahead of schedule. But I still love what they're building in Anaheim. But again, it's been up and down lately for the Anaheim Ducks, but still some great players to keep an eye on there. Leo Carlson, Cutter Gauthier. You go down the list. A lot of those high picks they've had in recent years are in the National Hockey League. They are making an impact, and they look like guys who are going to be good for a long time to come. So again, Anaheim, they're having their ups and downs, but I think it is a very collectible team, a very hobby-relevant team, if you will, regardless of how things have gone on the ice for them lately. Folks, the Olympic rosters have been out for a bit now, and I mentioned, and we will, at some point here in the coming weeks, we will have a full dive into the Olympic rosters. And I know we throw a lot of names at you here on Nonsense on Ice. We are going to throw a lot of names at you when we get to that Olympic preview. But something that's really, dominated a lot of the airwaves and taken up a lot of the conversation as well, in addition to just the names on the Olympic teams, the omissions from the Olympic teams. And I mentioned it a little bit last week, but if there is a player you collect, a player you've been thinking about collecting, guy you're keeping your eye on, a player you like that didn't make his country's national team, don't let that deter you from collecting that player, from pursuing that player's cards. And I went to one example here. Because again, the guys that didn't make the Olympic squads have been in the news. It's been a point. But I wanted to look at a guy who's been, relevant in recent years in the hobby, came in with a lot of hype, was kind of the driving rookie in a set going back a few years, and a player who's in a big market, who has a big fan base, teams playing well. I love watching Cole Caufield. He's a very good player. I think he's got the tools to be a perennial 40-goal scorer, one of those set your watch to it, 35, 40 goals a year, maybe even more. Great release, really fun to watch, entertaining team that he plays for. His 21-22 Upper Deck Young Gun number 201, the PSA 10, since January 2nd, there have been sales in the $158 to $218 range. And of course, he was not on the team. He was not named to the Team USA roster. In December, before the rosters were announced, range 158 to 215. There were some maybe in the middle there, more $180 to $190 sales. Maybe there was a little bit more movement in that span, but it was the same range. What I'm getting at here is you look at a player like that, and whether he was named to the Olympic roster or not didn't affect Cole Caufield's market at all. And getting back to it, like I said, if there's a player you collect, and he didn't get named to his country's national team. Don't let that stop you from buying the cards. Another one, for example, Lane Hutson, we threw that name at you. There are a lot of players, a lot of really good players that didn't make their national teams. And I still think I wouldn't hesitate to, or I should say, I wouldn't let that stop me from buying a player's cards. Let's put it that way. So that was just one example I wanted to throw your way, because the Olympic rosters have been a big topic here in recent weeks. Folks, speaking of international competition, mentioned on the last edition of Nonsense on Ice that when we talk to you next, which is today, we would know how things played out as far as the World Junior Championships are concerned. Sweden ended up winning the tournament. They looked like the best team. They looked like the team that was just rolling. And they ended up getting the job done, got that win in the gold medal game over Czechia. Just to throw some names at you here, guys that don't necessarily have NHL cards yet, but the tourney MVP, Wojtek Sihas, he's a Kings second-round pick in 2025. So if that name comes up again down the road, maybe you think back, that was the guy that was the MVP of the World Juniors per the IIHF. The top forward in the tournament, Anton Frondell, really good-looking player. Third overall pick of the Blackhawks 2025 draft. And this is a guy who looks like sooner than later is going to be maybe one of those cornerstone pieces, in addition to Connor Bedard, in addition to Frank Nazar and Artyom Levshinov, Spencer Knight, guys that Chicago are bringing in to make a part of the long-term plan. So Anton Frondell had a really nice tournament for the gold medal winning Team Sweden. Another guy from Team Czechia had a really nice tournament. The top defenseman in the tournament, Adam Juracek, he was the Blues' 16th overall pick in 2024. And Luv Herenstam, the top goalie in the tournament, also from the Blues, 6th-round pick in 2025. So shouldn't say from the Blues, should say for Team Sweden. But again, he was a Blues draft pick in 2025. Some other notables who do have NHL cards. Zane Parekh, he did set that new record for points by a Team Canada defenseman in the tournament. 13 points. He got past Alex Petrangelo's 11 and Brian McCabe's previous record of 12. So 13 points for Zane Parekh in the tournament. He got a lot of attention. He's currently back with the Flames, but out with an injury from the World Juniors. His Young Guns rookie from this year's Series 1, still pretty consistently about a $15 card. We've seen in recent years the hobby much more open to, those young, offensively gifted defensemen. And we've seen a lot of defensemen in recent years make big splashes in the hobby. So certainly some upside with Zane Parekh. Plays an exciting brand of hockey, and looking forward to seeing him get back on the ice with the Calgary Flames at some point. Jet Luchenko played for Team Canada. He's got a Young Gun number 484 in the 24-25 release. Still about a $3 card, not much movement there, but some upside for the Flyers first rounder a couple of years back. And Michael Misa, not much NHL stuff out. His Black Diamond stuff still selling pretty consistently. But as I mentioned, when we talked about the rookie debut jersey cards and things like that, there are going to be a lot of Michael Misa cards coming up as the hobby year goes along, some big chases. So, again, just a few names there, guys who have NHL cards. Looking ahead, the 2026 draft class looks pretty strong. And Gavin McKenna for a long time was kind of viewed as the odds-on number one there. But Ivar Stenberg, who had a nice tournament for Sweden, seems like maybe, as far as a lot of the experts are concerned, and I'll admit I'm not somebody who keeps up day to day on watching prospects. That takes a ton of dedication. And, again, I have a ton of admiration for the people who do it and the people who develop a really keen scouting eye doing it. But the people who keep an eye on, watching the junior ranks and everything like that, and keeping up with everything overseas and everything happening there. But Ivar Stenberg seems to, as far as a lot of the mock drafts concerned, a lot of the experts are concerned, maybe giving Gavin McKenna a little bit of a run for his money as far as who's going to be the top pick in the upcoming draft. So we'll just have to wait and see how things play out there. But at the end of it, looks like it's lining up to be a pretty anticipated draft, and a pretty deep draft. Of course, evaluating drafts, that can take years down the road to see how everything plays out. And that's why, as I said earlier, we're going to maybe in a future episode of Nonsense on Ice here, take a look back at a few different drafts from years past and how they've impacted the hobby, because we've had some that for one reason or another have been pretty hobby relevant. So we'll get to some of that coming up. Not going to show it to you, but I should say you might hear me turning pages. The way that Nonsense on Ice gets kind of laid out every week, I have a notebook, and it's the old school notebook, the ones that you get at the drugstore for like 79 cents. I don't even know if they're that much. But the old school notebook, I jot down notes throughout the week, and I jot down ideas for segments. And then when we get to maybe Thursday or Friday, I start to lay it out in an outline, kind of an order. And then I go in and kind of piece it together. So it's, again, it's just the way I work. I'm very much a jot down notes kind of guy. So that's why you hear me turning pages. I've got the old school spiral notebook here, and that's what we're working with. But it's just the way my brain works, I guess. I like to have everything written down there and just keep it in order. All right, folks. Connor Bedard update. Speaking of a guy left off an Olympic roster, talked about that a little bit ago. Would not deter me from buying Connor Bedard cards, I'll tell you that much. And there were some deals during those dozen games or so while he was out of the lineup. He came back Friday against Washington at the time of this recording. Played a little over 17 minutes in that one after missing 12. And then, of course, next night, couple of assists against Nashville in Chicago's win. Now, looking back at his 23-24 Upper Deck Young Guns number 451. One of the most hyped and still most coveted hockey cards of the last handful of years. The PSA 10s recent sales, there were a few sales, 2 sales on January 9th. So at the time we're recording, just a couple of days ago, $834 and $917 per card ladder. So that is still a very, very strong card in the market. Seems like a lot of the range in recent weeks, $700 to $900. So maybe it dipped a little bit during the time that he was out, but nothing crazy. The card didn't crater by any means. And the last 3 PSA 9s, those are selling strong. Last 3 PSA 9 sales per card ladder, $305, $287, $310. So still a lot of value to the PSA 9s from 23-24 Upper Deck Young Guns, the Connor Bedard number 451. This season, 46 points, 33 games for Connor Bedard, his career. 174 points in 183 games, most of that as a teenager. He turns 21 in July, so he's 20 all the way through this season, regardless of how far the Blackhawks go. If they make the playoffs, where they go from there, he is going to be 20 this entire season. When he turns 21 in July, he is going to already have a good deal of National Hockey League experience under his belt. And like I said, I think over his first couple of seasons, he may have been a little bit, I guess, unfairly. I think some people were unfairly down on Connor Bedard over those last couple of years, but still was close to a point a game as a teenager on a team that was very much in a rebuild, has a ton of flash to his game. He's exciting to watch. This is a guy who's going to be he's going to be a superstar in the National Hockey League for the better part of the next 10 to 15 years. So if you're out looking for Connor Bedard cards, I don't think that is any kind of a mistake. Not being named to Team Canada, that wouldn't scare me at all as far as looking for Connor Bedard cards. I think that is a very collectible player now and in the years to come. Going from the top pick in 2023 to the top pick in 2024, the Macklin Celebrini market pulse has kind of become a fixture here week to week, 70 points in 44 games. Mind-boggling. I was up way too late watching that game out west when the Sharks beat the Kings a few nights back. It would have been Wednesday night, I suppose. Yes, it was Wednesday night because I was watching it from Montreal. And Macklin Celebrini, unbelievable play to keep a puck in at the line, and then a great individual effort to tie the game, forced overtime, and then in overtime, stripped the king of the puck, set up William Eklund for the game winner. There you have it. It was a really good hockey game back and forth, but Macklin Celebrini took charge at the end, and San Jose wound up with 2 big points in a divisional matchup. And that's just one example. He's been pulling off instances like that on more than just a handful of occasions over the course of the year. And it feels like every week we're talking about the number 451 Young Guns card from 24-25. Macklin Celebrini's PSA 10s, they continue to just wow you as far as the price tags are concerned. On January 10th, there were a few sales per card ladder, $1,650, that's $1,650, $1,700, and $1,475. So they continue to be creeping up and up as the weeks go by. And can only imagine what kind of hype there might be, what kind of continued spike there might be if Macklin Celebrini has a big moment on the Olympic stage. We'll have to wait and see how things play out there. The last 4 PSA 9 sales at the time we're doing this, all $399 and up. The last 4 PSA 9 sales of that Macklin Celebrini Young Guns rookie card from last year. And the raws are pretty routinely in the 300s. You might be able to get some below 300 at this point, but and that number might change by the time this episode drops. But the raws routinely showing up in the 300s. So again, this is a card that has just continued to pick up steam. And I've been trying each week to let everybody know out there, I know the Young Gun is extremely desirable and rightfully so. And the Future Watch autos are pillars of the hobby. And the Cup RPAs are some of the most sought after cards, not just in hockey, but in the entirety of the hobby. And think about this too, sidetrack for a moment. But when the rookie debut jersey cards come out, that's going to be another pillar card, another pillar rookie card for people to chase each year in the hobby. So going to be really exciting to see how that fits into the overall landscape. I know it's going to be sought after. It's going to have its own unique place in the hobby. That's going to be fun to watch. But Macklin Celebrini's cards, they're all doing great. But I've been trying to let everybody know if you're getting into hockey collecting for the first time, if you've kind of been keeping an eye on it, and you see what this youngster on the Sharks is doing right now, and you want to get involved, but the price seems a little steep on these Young Guns. There are some options out there. If you want to get a Macklin Celebrini rookie card, you can still get one at a pretty good price. I know that this topic, that idea kind of led off last week's edition of Nonsense on Ice, but it still holds true. And I've been trying to throw examples at you each week for some options you have out there that are still coming along at a pretty friendly price tag. You go back to 24-25 Upper Deck SP, the Rookie Authentics Blue. Now, those were 4 per blaster box. Macklin Celebrini, number 135 in the set. You can still pick up raws of that card. It's a nice-looking card. You can still pick up raws of that card for $20, give or take. So in that range. Blasters of that product, at last check, 24-25 Upper Deck SP, the blasters, if they haven't sold out at the time of our recording, still available, Upper Deck's website, a few other places, around $30 if you still want to try and experience pulling a Macklin Celebrini rookie card. So those are still out there. And that kind of takes me to a different idea too. Whether it's retail, whether it's hobby, whatever it might be, another course of action here is anybody out there collecting sealed product from 24-25 hockey products. Macklin Celebrini rookie set wax. Is anybody collecting that? I know I've picked up some. I always, and I do have, I guess it's a way to, I do have some willpower because I can buy boxes here and there and I can just stash them in the closet and forget about them. But I've picked up a few different sealed products of Macklin Celebrini rookie year wax. Is that something you're doing? At Doug Plagens on the Twitter X platform, at Doug Plagens on Instagram, comment on our channels, YouTube, different places. Are you picking up sealed boxes and leaving them sealed? There are some good buys out there. Like I said, you can still find the Upper Deck Series 2 from last year, though that's starting to dry up, but friendly price tags still on the SP, the Metal Universe from last year, the O-Pee-Chee from last year. You can find some wax still at pretty friendly price tags if you want to, like I said, either experience what it's like to pull a Celebrini rookie, or if you just want to stash it and that's your play long term. So that's an option. 70 points already for Macklin Celebrini. So like I said, he's a guy that's just been rolling along and looks like he's going to be a face of the league, one of the faces of the league for a number of years to come. Couple of things to get to here as we kind of head down the stretch. We do have our Hobby 3 Stars coming up shortly. Sometimes we get to Hobby 3 stars early. Sometimes we get to it late. Kind of just goes on a how it feels basis each week. What do you prefer? What do you prefer? Let me know. I'm always open to suggestions. That big trade that took place, we're about at the 1 month anniversary of it. By the time this episode drops, we will be at 1 month and 1 day since the trade happened. So at the time of the recording here, we are 1 day shy of a month since the trade happened. You remember the Minnesota Wild, the Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes going to the Wild, Zeev Buium, Marco Rossi, Liam Ohgren going to Vancouver, in addition to another first-round pick. So you had 3 guys who were first-round picks and a first-round pick going to Vancouver for Quinn Hughes, a game-changing defenseman, one of the best in the business. What's happened since the trade? It's worked out for Minnesota. First of all, if it's a Quinn Hughes trade and you're the team that got Quinn Hughes, you've got to walk away from that feeling at least a little bit good about yourself. So the trade since it happened, Minnesota 8-2-4. So points in just about all the games they've played since they've added Quinn Hughes in a tough Central Division. They've caught up to Dallas. Going to be tough to catch Colorado, but Minnesota looks like a really, really good team and a contender. Going to get a chance to see them in person in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to seeing that. Since the trade, 16 points, 14 games for Quinn Hughes. He's about a point a game on the season, close to a point a game in his career as well. Again, there's a top-tier defenseman in the league. You really have Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes that are the top 2 in the National Hockey League. And as far as their hobby values are concerned, always guys that are in demand. But since the trade, Vancouver 5-6-2, they're kind of in a transition here, winless in 6 at the time of our recording here. And they've won just 1 of their last 8 at the time of the recording. But since the trade, Zeev Buium, he's playing a lot, over 20 minutes a night for Vancouver. And for a guy who's a young defenseman who's really gifted, maybe they hope he becomes something like Quinn Hughes down the road, a guy with huge upside. So keep an eye on him. He's going to have a lot of rookie cards come out as this year goes along. We'll get to cards in a minute. Marco Rossi, since the trade, 2 points in 8 games for Vancouver, but I love the upside there. He's still only 24 years old. Liam Ohgren, the sneaky one, only 5 points in 13 for Vancouver, but he turns 22 in a couple of weeks. Still a very young player with some upside. So we'll get into the card values. Quinn Hughes, the Young Guns PSA 10s, still in the $180 to $200 range from back in 1920. Looking at the guys that Vancouver got in the deal, Zeev Buium had to find a card that had a decent number of transactions. So I pulled up the 25-26 Upper Deck Artifacts. He has rookies and artifacts. The rookie numbered to $9.99, so chance to grab a numbered rookie card. Raws of that in the $10 to $20 range. So not a bad buy there if you believe in Zeev Buium long term. And to get a numbered rookie cards are always fun. So something you can hang on to there. But again, had to find a card. Doesn't have a ton of NHL stuff out yet. He will as the season goes along, as the hobby year goes along. But Zeev Buium's 25-26 artifacts to $9.99 right now, coming in at a friendly price tag. Marco Rossi, his Young Guns was back in 22-23. That's about a $3 to $5 raw card. And Liam Ohgren, 24-25 Upper Deck Young Guns, number 248, about a $4 to $6 card. Seemed like there was almost a little bit more traction on the Liam Ohgren than the Marco Rossi, which was interesting because Rossi does have better NHL stats to this point and has played more. But Liam Ohgren still getting a little bit of attention and just some guys to keep an eye on, because I do think there is upside. There is upside to, I know Quinn Hughes headlines the deal, but there is some big upside to what Vancouver got in the trade. So keep an eye on that. Some affordable card options for those guys. Hobby 3 stars, folks. And this week on Hobby 3 stars, we're highlighting some of what I would call legacy players at this point. One guy who really is right in the thick of his prime, but all 3 could step away and be Hall of Famers tomorrow. There's no question about it. And they've all hit milestones. I talked a lot earlier on about milestones, NHL debuts, first NHL goals, things like that. Maybe it's just the way that I work, but I love the big moments. And so I love the milestones. And again, these are players who've hit some big milestones lately. Patrick Kane, Thursday for Detroit, scored twice. 500 goals for him. 50th player in the history of the National Hockey League to reach 500 goals. The 5th U.S.-born player to reach 500 goals. And future Hall of Famer. He's got the 3 Stanley Cups. He was a Rookie of the Year in 2008, a Conn Smythe in 2013. He's got a Hart. He's got an Art Ross. He won a Ted Lindsay Award. Patrick Kane has really accomplished everything. Long time with the Blackhawks. Little stop off in New York with the Rangers. Now a Detroit Red Wing, and the Red Wings playing some good hockey right now. Patrick Kane's 2007-08 Young Guns number 210. The last 3 BGS 9.5 sales of that card, $577, $400, $410. The last PSA 10 sale per card ladder was back on the 2nd of December, a $900 sale, and one in November sold for $1,000. So again, this is a card that has sold really strong. It has sold strongly for years, but Patrick Kane, he is an all-timer, and he leads off our hobby 3 stars this week. Steven Stamkos, next up. He hit the 600 goal mark this season. At the time of our recording, he's sitting at 600 goals, 22nd in the history of the National Hockey League, over a point per game in his career, 2 Rocket Richard trophies. That goes annually to the league's leader in goals. 2 Stanley Cups, both of those with the Tampa Bay Lightning. His 08-09 Upper Deck Young Guns number 245. The last couple of sales on that, $325, $232. So a guy who, again, could step away tomorrow. He will have a plaque in Toronto when it's all said and done. He is a future Hall of Famer. Steven Stamkos, also on this week's Hobby 3 Stars, and also on the Hobby 3 Stars this week. Auston Matthews, just over a week ago, became Toronto's all-time goals leader, past the great Mats Sundin with his 421st goal, has added another since then. 3-time Rocket Richard trophy, 2017 Calder trophy as the Rookie of the Year, 2022 won the Hart trophy and the Ted Lindsay. The only thing missing at this point for Auston Matthews, unlike the last 2 names I've thrown at you, Auston Matthews missing a Stanley Cup. He'll be playing for Team USA at the upcoming Olympics, so a lot of eyes will be on him at that tournament. Last 3 PSA 10 sales of his 2016-17 Young Guns rookie card number 201. Those were on January 9th, the last 3 sales. $725, $735, $725, a still strong card. Auston Matthews, Upper Deck Young Guns rookie card. Your 3 stars of the week, all big-time goal scorers, all future Hall of Famers, guys who've hit big milestones lately. Patrick Kane, Steven Stamkos, and Auston Matthews. A few things before we wrap up the program today. I mentioned the value vintage pick. Value vintage pick, and this kind of ties back to mentioning Auston Matthews. But the value vintage pick this week, again, mention it off the top. Don't get mad at me. This may not be widely viewed as a vintage card. The 90-91 O-Pee-Chee Premier Mats Sundin rookie card. That's who Matthews passed. That's whose record he broke when he became Toronto's all-time goal-scoring leader. So we're going back to 1990. Not necessarily a vintage card in the sense that it's not from pre-1979. I think that's still what PSA designates as what a vintage card is. But going back to 90-91 O-Pee-Chee Premier, and I've mentioned before, multiple times, my affinity for 90-91 O-Pee-Chee Premier. And when we get to the summer, there will be a full retrospective look back at the 90-91 rookie class, and specifically that O-Pee-Chee Premier set. We might even go card by card through the whole thing because I love that set so much. But the 90-91 O-Pee-Chee Premier Mats Sundin rookie card, number 114, this was mind-boggling for a guy that, and again, I was in Toronto earlier this week and saw Mats Sundin doing a media scrum. And I saw that when he's shown up on the Jumbotron in Toronto, this is a guy who is still beloved in Toronto, revered in Toronto. His last 4 PSA 10 sales, all in December, between $24.99 and $33.13. Barely more than the grading cost at this stage of the game. A $5 raw card, give or take a buck or two, for one of the greatest Toronto Maple Leafs of them all. And that's a great fan base, a huge fan base. He was Toronto's all-time goals leader until Matthews broke the record. Hall of Famer. NHL top 100 players back when they did that list at the Centennial. Played in 9 straight All-Star games. Finished his career just over a point a game. 1,349 points in 1,346 games. His number 13's retired in Toronto, and he's always, as a result, going to have a really strong built-in fan base because he was a great Toronto Maple Leaf. Mats Sundin, great player back in kind of my formative years as a hockey fan back in the 90s. And again, a card that can be had at a really friendly price tag, the PSA 10 Mats Sundin rookies. And he's got other rookie cards from 90-91. He's in the Upper Deck base set. So there are some other cards to pursue, but I just love the O-Pee-Chee Premier from 90-91. I highlighted the Jágr maybe about a month or so ago. Other great rookies in that set. You had Mike Modano, you had Sergei Fedorov, you had Ed Belfour, Curtis Joseph. You go down the list. There were a lot of great players with rookie cards in that set, but Mats Sundin is one of those. And that is this week's value vintage pick, the 90-91 Mats Sundin O-Pee-Chee Premier Rookie, card number 114 in the set that you can get at an incredibly reasonable price. Folks, that takes us to the ripping of the packs. And again, our folks north of the border, our friends north of the border, you've probably seen these, you've probably bought these. Might be nothing new to you. Doesn't mean we can't still have fun with it. They are the 25-26 Upper Deck Tim Hortons cards. And I was surprised to still find these available. Popped into a couple of Tim Hortons, and I should preface it with, I get the coffee. I get the Timbits. Always enjoy a good trip to Tim Hortons. But 25-26, 3 cards a pack. You see Sidney Crosby right there on the wrapper. You get 2 base cards. I think it's a 120 card base set. You get an insert in every pack, and there's some cool inserts, and there are some different pack odds. You have certain inserts that are, 1 in 4 packs, 1 in 3 packs, 1 in 12, 1 in 24. So different inserts to chase. There are autographs, incredibly tough to pull, but there are Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon autographs. There's something like one in 130,000, 150,000 packs to get. Who knows? Maybe today, in this hotel room in Ottawa, this will be the lucky day. But I was able to stumble into a few of these. Like I said, our friends north of the border, you probably have plenty of experience with these, but I'm sure we have a lot of folks tuned in the States that have maybe seen these. You've seen them, maybe you go to the card show, you've seen them in boxes, maybe you've seen them online, on eBay, perusing. You wonder what these are. Well, here we go. Really nice looking cards. Here we go. Brock Boeser. First card out of the box, lots of shine. Try to get it at an angle where you can clearly see it. There's our Brock Boeser. Our other base card in the set, or in the pack, is Dylan Larkin. We're going to rip through about 5 of these. And we have an insert, the Monumental Moments, Nico Hischier. Get a look at him. We'll show you what the back of the card looks like, too. Got the Tim Hortons stamp on it. You can see on the bottom there the Tim Hortons stamp, but nice-looking cards, lots of shine. And like I said, they're fun. It's a fun product to rip. And Evan Bouchard. We've got something with some gold foil on it here. We'll skip to the back card. William Eklund in our insert. Oh, look at this. We've got a goalie etchings insert. Ilya Sorokin. Goalie etchings. 1 in 7 packs on the goalie etchings. So there was no guarantee we were going to get that. Couple more here, folks. Who doesn't love ripping packs at the time of this recording? Ripping packs here as we record Nonsense on Ice. Charlie McAvoy. What do we have? Above the Ice, we have an insert, a JT Miller base. The Above the Ice insert. Lots of foil finish. Look at that. Josh Morrissey. Cool card. Got the overhead shot there. Josh Morrissey. 2 packs. 2 packs left, folks. Insert in every pack. 25-26. Tim Hortons from our friends at Upper Deck. William Karlsson, still in his Leafs uniform. Mitch Marner. And Philip Gustafson on the Monumental Moments. Should mention I enjoyed seeing, I opened a couple packs the other day, and I did pull the Brad Marchand, who is a Panther in the card, which was cool to see. I know it's not his first Panthers card, but it was cool to see Brad Marchand Panthers card. Here's Uri Slafkovsky from the Canadiens. Oh, we got another goalie etchings. Tim Stützle. Goalie etchings. Aiden Hill from Vegas. Look at all that gold. Got the gold of the foil, the gold on the Golden Knights uniform. Goalie etchings. So some fun stuff there. If you find yourself north of the border, I was pretty surprised to still find these out there. But the Tim Hortons cards, 25-26 Tim Hortons from Upper Deck, just a fun product. And hey, you go for a cup of coffee, get yourself a donut, sandwich, whatever, and grab some hockey cards with it. Doesn't get a whole lot better than that. And it doesn't get a whole lot better than being able to chat about the hobby with all you fine folks out there. Big announcements from Upper Deck. Glad we got to talk about that. And that's in addition to, and I'm sure this is going to get talked about a lot on some of the other programs here on the network, but Upper Deck announced the Harry Potter license as well. So big happenings in the world of Upper Deck over the course of the last week. But as it pertains to this show right here, the NHL rookie debut jersey cards. That is going to be exciting. Can't wait to see how it all plays out. Can't wait to rip some extended series when it comes time to do so over the summer. But that takes us to the end of the program here today. Big thanks to all of you for stopping by again. As I mentioned earlier, I hope we're getting new folks every week. And if you're a new listener, a new viewer, whether you're listening on one of the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, if you're watching on YouTube, let us know what you think. Give us a review. Subscribe if you feel inclined. Let us know. Shoot us a line at Doug Plagens on Twitter, and or fire along an inquiry at Doug Plagens on Instagram. We're always looking to hear from everybody, get those suggestions. But again, tell a friend if you like what you've heard here, if you like what you've seen, and of course, we really enjoy having you with each passing week, and always enjoy the opportunity to chat about the hobby with all of you fine folks. So again, Nonsense on Ice, as always, presented by our friends at Upper Deck. Busy week in the world of Upper Deck. And again, just great to see those announcements this week, and really excited to see where everything goes. Thanks to all of you who tuned in, wherever, however you tuned in. Thanks, Rebecca, on the other side, for the great production work as always. Again, this has been Nonsense on Ice, presented by Upper Deck. I'm Doug Plagens. We'll talk to you next time.